Hi guys, welcome back to
Power
Power
Rangers
Rangers
playback.
So as you know, Kat is now in the Tennessee. She has left me.
I'm in Tennessee, y'all. I
And
haven't left her. It's just an adjustment, and I get to see her because we travel together. But it is definitely an adjustment.
Yes, yes. We're still powwowing through, but today we have an amazing guest for you guys.
Yes.
Can you talk about Melissa, Kat?
Yes. So Melissa Flores, we met her back, I must have been 7 years ago now. We met her. She used to work with Saban with the franchise, Power Rangers franchise, and then traveled with them to Hasbro as well. She is a fan of the show, but also has just so much knowledge of way more than we do. of everything that is about the show, and she's a writer and a producer, and she's super talented and has a lot to share. So we can't wait to introduce her to you guys. You've probably heard her name, but this is her beautiful face, Melissa Flores.
Hello. Hi, guys. Hi, ladies. So happy to see you. I've missed you.
Yes, it's been too long.
As we were chatting earlier, COVID has definitely caused some problems with us, seeing friends that we haven't seen in a while. But we get to see you here, so thank you.
I know. It's such a pleasure. Look at your beautiful faces.
Aw. Shucks.
So tell us what you're up to now, Miss Melissa. What are some things that, well, actually, before you go there, can we start with how you started working for Saban?
Absolutely. So I was a creative executive for television. That's how I started my career. I worked at FX and HBO. And then that experience was so stressful. I took a break for 3 years. And I started working as an assistant to a finance executive at Saban Capital Group, which is the investment firm for Haim Saban. And I was there for 3 years. It was great. He treated his employees very, very well. I loved working 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 and then not having to work till 10 like an assistant like I used to. But after about 3 years, I got really bored. And so I talked to the general counsel at that group who I'd become close to. And I told her that I was getting a little bored and I was thinking about going back to entertainment because I missed it. I missed being creative. I missed that world. And she's like, well, you probably don't have to go far because we might have something for you. And at the time they had just bought Power Rangers back from Disney. And so he had bought 2 big brands. He had bought Paul Frank and he had bought Power Rangers. And he launched a company called Saban Brands to manage them and develop them. And they had hired a producer called Brian Casantini to head the development and production department. And so I interviewed with Brian, and it was actually a job for distribution, which is different from production. So what distribution does is when the stuff whatever the product is, whenever the TV show is done, you need the distribution department to make sure it goes to everywhere it needs to go to, that it's formatted the right way, that the dubs are done right, especially for international, all that fun stuff. So it was for a distribution coordinator. But thankfully Brian saw my resume, saw that I was a creative at heart, and said, let's just make the job a development job. You can be a coordinator in development here with me. And that's what just kind of started. It was actually one of the craziest years of my life. I didn't know anything about Power Rangers at the time. I had been just a little too old. I was more in the Saved by the Bell phrase when Power Rangers was around. But basically they said, okay, here's Power Rangers. You have 6 months to edit together a franchise Bible, and also make sure you know everything about everything because nobody knows anything. So by that time there was 18 seasons.
Yes.
And think about like 5 to 10 Rangers on each season, including 6 Rangers, each one a different costume, and a bunch of executives that have no idea which is which, a bunch of new licensees who have no idea which is which. Everybody just remembers Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Right. And we were coming back that year with Samurai. So it was a big learning curve. But it was great because that's exactly how you become an expert in the brand, right? You live and breathe it for a full year and a half. And so I just worked my way up from coordinator to manager to director. And that's what I was. I ended up becoming basically the lore master for Power Rangers by that time. And by the time I was the director of Power Rangers development and production, what I was doing was my job was to be anytime a new licensee came in, or anytime we had a story that had to do with Power Rangers, it was our department's job to work with the other departments, because we always worked together. There was a marketing team, there was a business affairs team, there was an actual licensing team that worked with the licensors to make sure that the canon was correct, the lore was correct, the costumes were correct, and also that it was the best Power Ranger story it could be for whatever medium it was. So I didn't just have to work on television. Actually, that was the least part of what I did. I had the least amount to do with the actual television series. I worked on the movie, I worked on video games, I worked on publishing with the Boom Studios books and a bunch of other books, the novels with Penguin, Battle for the Grid. I got to do a lot of really cool stuff. We did Hyperforce, just a lot of really fun stuff that I got to be a part of. And then when we were bought by Hasbro, I moved over there and I was there a couple years with them, basically doing more or less the same thing.
Right. Right.
Melissa,
And that's how I met you lovely ladies. Yeah.
Yes.
50 jobs with Saban. It just you were like, I was doing this and that and this and that and this and that. Do you know why did Saban buy the brand back from Disney?
Because here's what I think, and this is just my personal opinion, no insider knowledge at all, because I didn't, I came in at the end of that thing. I don't think Disney ever really knew what to do with Rangers. So when they bought Power Rangers, it was part of a package. They bought the family channel from Haim for a big chunk of money, and Power Rangers was just happened to be in there. And this was Disney pre-Marvel, pre-Star Wars. Like, they just had princesses and Mickey Mouse. They did not know what to do with a Power Rangers kind of thing.
Yeah.
In a way, that was good, because then you had these, I think some of the Disney era shows for Power Rangers seasons were incredibly strong and very well produced and beautifully filmed, and with an incredible cast like Aaron. So you had, they allowed the showrunner a lot of autonomy. It got put on not Disney Channel, but Jetix. But I think what happened was that over the years, it started getting moved around a lot, and just Disney just did not know what to do with it. And so by the time that it was being sold, they had basically they were going to cancel the show. I think like RPM was the last season that they had done, which, very well done. I think a lot of people's favorite seasons, probably the least Power Rangers season. It was more like Mad Max meets Rangers than it was like Power Rangers, which I think might have also been a part of that, which was good in the terms, because we ended up with RPM, which is an incredible season. But I think by the end of that, they just didn't know what they were going to do with Rangers anymore. So they ended up not doing any new productions and doing that reversion season 1. I don't know if you guys remember that. So it was, they took a bunch of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers episodes and like Batmaned them. You remember Batman, the animated series? Where they started doing the Pow and the Pam and all, they started doing that for like, and they did it for like 20, 30 episodes. And that was how they were good. And the problem was, and this is a problem that always happens, is that, when it's a huge brand, you have these incredible loyal fans that watch it for forever. But then you have the bigger audience that only remembers Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And I think they really struggled trying to figure out how to marry the two. Yeah. And so Haim, being Haim, looks for opportunities, and that was an opportunity to get his baby back. And honestly, I think it worked. The Samurai was the #1 kids show on Nickelodeon for a really long time, and we were a top 10 kids action brand. I mean, it was good to work at a small company like that had Power Rangers, because unlike Disney that had 1,000 other properties, we had Power Rangers and Paul Frank. So all of our attention was on Power Rangers and Paul Frank. Yeah. And we and there were mandates, Haim definitely wanted to go back to the older way of how he did things, so the formula for MMPR definitely showed up differently. It did skew a little younger than maybe RPM would or something else. But but the kids loved it, and it's really fun to see now, because now it's I feel very old, because you have people being like, oh, Samurai was my childhood, but it's nice to see that that people are fall in love with each season the way you did even in the Disney years and before.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a couple of episodes with that band pow, and I was like, "What are they doing?" It was bizarre.
It
Just
was a
did
little weird,
not
yeah.
work. It did not work. Yeah, yeah. Wow, I didn't know that. I don't think I've heard that whole story about how you
Either.
went there. Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
cool. I'm going to ask you a question because it ties into what you were just saying. One of our members wanted to know how you got started in the business. Did you? How did you actually? I know you said you were creative director at HBO. How did you go do that in college? What kind of prompted you to get it?
No, I actually thought I was gonna be a doctor. My
Wow.
mom really wanted me to be a doctor, and then I discovered I had undiagnosed ADHD, and it was impossible for me to be a doctor because I couldn't focus. No, I went
That was
to
dangerous.
yeah, I went to the California Academy of Math and Science for high school. It was a very science-based school, very math-based school. I loved both of them, so I had no problem with that. But like the other side of my brain was always very itchy, and I was always obsessed with television and books and movies when I was a kid. Like the only way my mom could ever figure out to punish me was I wasn't able to watch that week's show. And this was before, DVR and streaming. So if you didn't watch that week's Star Trek Voyager, you were out of luck. You weren't going to watch it again until the VHSs came out. So I was always obsessed with story. And I think what happened was I interned at Nissan my senior year in high school. Because by the time we got to junior year at this school, it was a magnet school. We were starting to take college classes and taking calculus and all that crazy stuff. And so I took an internship at Nissan, being like, I can do it. Like, this would be good. It's Nissan. It was the most boring word stiff.
Yes.
And that's the kind of job you need to be like really excited about. And I was like, there's no way I can do any of this. And so when I went to college, I was really lost. I didn't know what to do. So I majored in communication. And I started discovering fan fiction, which was starting to get really big at that time. And I started to be like, hey, I'm not terrible at this writing thing. I think it's pretty cool. So when I graduated college, I got a job as a receptionist at a production company. And I kind of just
Worked your
worked
way
my
up.
way up. Yeah,
You
paid
sound
my
like
dues, just like everybody else.
this is a theme. You have a really amazing work ethic, and people see that in you, and they want to give you more because you're working so hard. So that's really
Oh, I
cool. It's
appreciate that.
funny with math because when I was growing up, you were either, teachers told you were good at math or you were good at writing. Like they didn't merge the two. And it's really funny because so many people that I know that are super creative, like this one right here, Nakia, same thing. She's amazing with numbers, but she's also creative. So I feel like math is very creative and you have to problem solve and figure things out. So you kind of have that producer mind already there.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Yeah.
I think
Go ahead.
I'm going to say something real quick. I just think it's incredible how you worked your way up to where you were trying to go. And that's a telltale for anybody that's watching. Like, if you have a dream or a passion or a desire to get somewhere, it's not handed to you.
Right.
90% of the time, it's not handed to you. It takes hard work. And I'm sure through your journey, Melissa, you got some no's. You got some, you had
so many.
boring. Yes. See? And you just don't give up. If it's something that you want, you keep going for it.
Oh, and it took me a long time. Like I said, I gave up. I just was so frustrated with the process because I was trying to be a writer's assistant and I just could never get in the room. It was one of those things, and it was always I was very close, but not. I remember I was going to be a producer. I was going to be a producer's assistant for the Sarah Silverman show, and at the last minute, they cut that guy's assistant, so I couldn't get that job. He was ready to hire me, but he just didn't get the budget approved. I got an interview to be an assistant or a manager or an assistant for Broadway Video, which is the people that do 30 Rock and all those amazing shows. And I was really excited about that. And he asked me to do coverage, and I gave it to him. And he said, "This is the best coverage I've ever had. You won't like this job. You're going to be too bored. And I can't hire you because you should be a manager. You shouldn't be an assistant." And I'm like, well, nobody will ever make me a manager unless you give me
a chance
as an assistant. I'm willing to work my way up. It was really frustrating. I mean, there was one time where I'm not going to say the room, but I was very close to getting into a really popular broadcast TV room. And it was between me and a guy, and they picked the guy because it was mostly guys in the writer's room, and they didn't want to have to worry about a girl in the room because sometimes they told like sexist jokes. Like that was what they told me. So it is so frustrating sometimes, and it took me a long time. I'm an older woman now. Like it took me a long time to even get to where I am now, where I'm now writing for a living. Just to be a director, it took 20 plus years, and now this. But everything that I did gave me experience to get to where I am now.
Right.
And I'm thankful for that, because I think I'm a much better writer for all that experience.
Yeah.
And that's allowed me to get there. But it definitely doesn't just happen overnight. You have to work really hard and hear a lot of no's, and sometimes get your will crushed a little bit. But nobody's going to believe in you if you don't believe in you. So you have to keep working.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to be your own advocate. 100%. One of our members, Thomas, was asking, what advice could you give him on writing and filmmaking? He's just starting out. He's in college, and he just wanted to know if you have any words of wisdom.
Look at what you want to write. Look at who is writing it. Read their scripts, watch their shows, and look at how they did it. It's never going to be easy. I think a lot of people want to be writers, and a lot of people want to be filmmakers. If you have a story to tell, people want to hear it, but you have to find that audience, and you have to find the experience to get there. And I think the biggest advice I would always give to somebody is learn how to take notes. Learn how to take constructive criticism, because I think one of the things that holds a lot of young people back is an inability to understand that when people give you constructive criticism, or when people give you notes, even if you don't agree with the notes, you just have to listen to them sometimes. One thing I have noticed that has gotten me work over someone maybe that I might have been more talented is that I can work with people. I've been a producer and I've been a writer, and I know how producers think. So when they tell me, I'm going to give you a note that sounds really freaking ridiculous, but this is a note that's coming from the president of the company. Okay, that's fine. Let's do it. Let's find a way. And it could be the dumbest note, but sometimes you just have to listen, and you have to be willing to work. You were never writing in a vacuum, and nobody, unless you're, I don't know, Steven Spielberg, there's nobody that's going to be so much of a genius. They're going to be like, oh, this person's so amazing, I'm just going to let them do whatever they want. People are in this business to make a profit.
Right.
So that means you have to work with a lot of people. And you have to not take rejection or no's that personally. I mean, I say the same thing to actors, and you guys know, because you are actors. Sometimes you just not getting the role is as simply as, oh, we have a girl that's got brown hair today already.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just so dumb. Like I always tell my friends who get really down about not getting a role, it's like, you guys, literally, I've been in those rooms. You have 2 headshots and they'll be like, we like that one, for no other reason. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
So you just have to remember that sometimes the odds just aren't in your favor. You don't give up, but you also have to work continually to get better and hear what other people are telling you, and make sure that you're willing to work on it.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think you're right. I think a lot of younger people, we've kind of raised a generation that has a hard time with criticism. They're very on the defense. I know that with my teenagers at times. And so, when we were raised, it was like, a little bit of tough love. I think sometimes that's a good thing. You have to be able to receive it so that you can grow and learn from it, especially in this business. It builds, you have to have tough skin.
Yeah, and I think I love what has changed a lot about this business, because I don't think we need to have toxic work environments to do a good job, and I don't think you have to pay your dues by being like cemented and treated like trash like we were. I don't think that's the case at all, but I do think a good work ethic goes a long way. And I think you definitely shouldn't just be expected things. You shouldn't be expected, oh, I worked here for 2 years, now I deserve a promotion. Okay, what did you do to deserve this promotion?
Right.
I wrote the script, you have to make it. Why? Why does the script have to be made now? Why do I have to make it? What do I get out of it?
Right.
Or even coming to me and being like, hey, I want to write for Power Rangers. Okay, a lot of people want to write for Power Rangers. Why you?
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, it's don't be entitled. Humble yourself a little bit and work at it. Yep.
Yeah.
And even if you don't get Power Rangers, you're going to get something else.
Yes.
Right.
What's yours? Whatever is destined for you, you have to go for it. You can't just expect it to just drop in your lap when you never take the steps forward to receive it or to catch it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yes. Do you want to read one of the super chats, Key, or do you want me to just read these ones from
Yeah.
our?
How many more did you have?
We have 4 more from our members. David asked, what is your take on how Hasbro is handling the franchise?
Well, they hired me to write the books, so I think they're doing a great job. No, I know what you're asking.
We've been talking about being humble.
It's hard for me to say because I don't know anybody at the franchise right now, and I don't know what their game plan is. For all we know right now, they are being very quiet because they're setting up for something much bigger. You also have to remember that they are not just handling Power Rangers right now, but they're handling a lot of brands. It's not like Saban Brands, where Power Rangers was our tentpole brand, was our brand that we cared the most about, and so we did a bunch for. Hasbro has Transformers, and they've got My Little Pony, and E1 is now handling all the entertainment for Power Rangers, which means they're not just handling those brands, but they're handling everything E1 does. So it's a lot. And so it's going to be different than how Saban handled it, or even how Hasbro handled it when, myself and Jason and these people that now were on the brand. It was just, we don't know who's running the brand right now. And unfortunately, as a fan, I definitely think it can be frustrating. But what I will always say is that nobody buys a brand to just burn it into the ground. There's always a plan because, again, it's not for any love or sentimentality. It's because they want to make money. And at the end of the day, they have to look at Power Rangers and decide how it's going to make money for them. And sometimes those decisions can be controversial and not great. And sometimes there can be mistakes. But at the end of the day, it's their brand, and they get to decide what to do with it.
I have a question for you, seeing as you were on the inside scoop of things. When they make decisions, do they ever do go to the fandom and ask what they're looking for, or do test audience things like that? Because I'm always perplexed. A lot of the where we have hands and feet with the fans, we hear directly from them what they want and who they like and what their favorite season. We get that information all the time. And oftentimes I feel like, when they do certain anniversary episodes or they do certain things with the show, sometimes I'm perplexed and think, well, did they listen to what the fans want?
Yeah. It is a weird balancing act. I think they I know I can only speak for my time there. I can't speak to what they're doing now, obviously. Right. We absolutely wanted to listen to the fans. It is a weird balancing act in that we have to manage super fan expectations versus fan expectations. And there's basically 3 buckets of Power Ranger fans, or there was. I don't know if there is now. But this is what I would actually teach our licensees. I would do every time we got a big new licensee, I would come in and do a Power Rangers 101 presentation that lasted an hour and a half. And this is one of the things I would teach you. There's 3 different buckets of fans. There are casuals. These are the people that remember Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and nothing else. They'll look at any Ranger and be like, where's Tommy? Right? They're the only one. They have no idea who anything else other than there's a suit and a helmet, right? And then there are the kid fans. They're the ones that started with Samurai and Ninja Steel and Megaforce. And I know a lot of the older fans hate Megaforce, but that did gangbusters with kids. Kids loved Megaforce. So you have the kid fans, right? And then you have the super fans. And it kind of goes like this in terms of the groups. So you have to we want to do as much as we can for the super fans because, well, again, not me anymore, but when I was there, you want to do as much as you can for the super fans. Absolutely. Because they're your most loyal and dedicated fans. We appreciate and love them. At the same time, if we only cater to super fans, we lose all these other people.
Right.
And that is why I think the frustration with like, oh my God, another MMPR figure. Oh my God, why? That's where the frustration plays in. And I think that's where, when we were there, we really tried to give avenues to the super fans where they could do cooler stuff. Like, for example, Hyperforce for me was for the super fans. We did that for them. We worked really hard to make sure that it was a non-MMPR season, that we went to fan favorite seasons, that we cast actors from every different season, like as many seasons as we could. Battle for the Grid, again, was for super fans, but also for casuals. What we noticed was if we root something in MMPR, that would get the casual fans in, but then we could do what we did with Shattered Grid and teach them the other teams.
Yeah. Yes,
and the bigger versions.
The Boom comics really, for me, I feel like was such a clever way of like exploring all these ideas that the fans had, like bringing all those universes together. It was very clever. I'm so glad that they did that.
Oh, they were. Boom had absolutely the right idea, and they were fantastic, and they continue to do great work.
Yeah,
I love that
because I'm working with them.
I love that they've added other characters outside of just MMPR because I have to say I was slightly offended with the Lightning collection that all of Zeo came out, including the Cogs, and then me. And
really?
So yes. All of them, everybody came out, even the villains, and then Tanya. And
that's
I felt
ridiculous.
very like that, yeah, on the show as well. But so I love that Boom is incorporating other seasons outside of just MMPR. So that's why that was one of the questions why I asked earlier as well. We have several super chats that have come in. So let me just ask a couple of those. I know you still have some more questions.
But maybe know my dog. Someone was chewing. Really?
You might need to put Otis outside the room.
Cries like a little baby. Oh my gosh. This dog, I tell you, he thinks he's human. Okay, I have another question. We'll go back to the show. This is from Kenny. He says, how does an average Joe like me send his ideas to Boom Comics?
You don't. We can't read them. Again, like everybody that has worked at Boom Comics, we have worked in the industry for either a very long time or long enough for us to get the work done and get noticed. And I think that's what you have to do. And I say this as somebody that was an executive at Boom and is now writing the books, we cannot accept unsolicited submissions. Legally, we cannot. Okay. Not even because we're jerks, but legally we cannot, because there have been instances, and I'm not saying this would ever happen here, but there have been instances where writing, you can only tell so many stories, and then somebody will send something in and it just happens to sort of like have something in common with something else that somebody else writes, and then all of a sudden somebody's sued because they're saying we stole the story. Right. If you want to write for Boom, I would expand bigger than that and say, I want to write comic books, and write enough comic books, or write in a way that you're in a position where eventually you can make that contact with Boom and eventually write for Boom, whether or not be Power Rangers or not. I did not just decide to write and then get the Boom job, right? I had worked with Boom for 6 years. I knew the process. I worked with them. I have been a writer for 20 something years. And so when the opportunity came to write this, the reason they asked me was because I already had a book in the Dead Lucky. I had already done other books. They knew me. They knew I had the sensibilities to pull it off. But I did not, not even I myself went to Boom and said, can I write a book for you? They are going to be the ones looking for the talent, and your job, if you want to write for Boom, is to get noticed. And you do that by creating your own stuff or working in a way where you can be a comic book writer. And then if you're good, and I'm sure you would be, eventually they find you. But I wouldn't focus on something so small as I just want to write Power Rangers for Boom, because that's one book. They're only going to have one artist, one writer, or at the time they had two, I think. One or two people out of how many people that want to write Power Rangers. Think bigger. Think, I want to write comic books. I want to write for a indie. There's plenty of indie houses that do it. And then eventually you'll get enough in a portfolio that you can get a meeting with Boom and say, I want to write for Power Rangers, for Buffy, whatever. And maybe by that point, you'll be in a position where they'll be like, okay, let's see if there's an opportunity to do that. But it's never going to be just sending them a story and having them take you on. That is not how that works.
Okay, good.
I hope that didn't sound mean.
No, it's not. Well, it's honest. It's true. It's I didn't even think about that aspect of the ideas getting stolen and stuff. You have to protect yourself. It's a liability. Yeah.
Another
also, again, there's just so few people. Like there's so few jobs in one specific thing. If you want to be successful, you have to be open for everything, and then eventually you'll get that cool job.
Yeah.
Another option is also starting your own. That's something that I wanted to throw out there, because we often want to work for these big corporations and all of that, and sometimes God has a different plan for you. You might have these fantastic ideas. Everyone started somewhere. You might have these fantastic ideas, and you can come up with your own series of books. And maybe that whole series of books you can end up selling to Boom or selling to another indie house. I have several super chats. I don't think you heard me earlier, Kat. So why don't we go back and forth, because we have probably like 10 that have come in.
Yeah.
Just so that we have enough time to have these in. So let's do our first one from Thomas Powell, Film and TV, which is also one of our channel members. Super chat, raise them up high. Thomas says, is it hard to come up with something new when you are writing? What process do you go through when you are writing?
Say that one more time for me.
Is it hard to come up with something new when you're writing? What process do you go through when you are writing?
Yes and no. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, there's only 7 stories you can tell in a hero's journey, right? At the end of the day, everything's going to be familiar. Where you find your uniqueness is in your own life and what inspires you. So for example, I write an image book called The Dead Lucky, which is a superhero book. And that is completely original. That is a story that I created for that world. But it was inspired by my partner, who is an Army veteran. And I was really fascinated by her experiences and in the Army. And I wanted to be like, well, what if I wrote a book inspired by something like that? So many of stories just start with what if, blah, but, it's usually, I mean, you find the best story is like, what if this happens, but then this happens, and then that happens. So it's just a matter of asking yourself questions and finding what inspires you. I mean, like I said, I got started in fan fiction, which is literally just taking TV shows and being like, well, I didn't like how that happened, or I love this so much, I want to write more about that. That's how you scone your skills. You just write it. And eventually the stories start coming. And you can, you can read books and get training, but the best thing I always saw was just, let your imagination take care of you, read what other people are doing and let yourself be inspired, and look at your own life. Look at your dog and be like, what if my dog just suddenly decided to get up and start talking? What's going to happen?
That would be funny.
Yeah. What if the internet stopped working everywhere? Like, just start thinking about that sort of stuff. And that's how you start coming up with stories.
Yeah. Just let your mind expand.
Yeah. And in terms of my process, I tend to be a very disciplined writer because, like I said, I have ADHD. So I work in processes. So I start with a pitch, usually just an overall, here's what I want my story to be. And then I go to a general outline, like here's the story, more or less what's going to happen in beats. And then I will do a page breakdown for comic books specifically, or even for scripting, where I'll be like, okay, this is going to happen on this page. This is going to happen on this page. And so by the time I'm ready to write the script, the story's broken. It's done. It's just a matter of execution and dialogue.
I like that. Take note, guys. Go back and rewind so that you can.
I'm gonna have to rewrite that myself.
Yeah, I like the way that she said that. I was sitting here taking notes too, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go back and re-listen to what Melissa just said as well."
Yeah.
Right.
You guys can text me. You know where to find me.
Another super chat from JL Leitcher. He actually has 2, so I'm gonna read. He actually has 3, so I'm gonna read all 3 of them together. Super chat, raise them up high. All old Power Ranger seasons are on YouTube, he says. And then he says lots of anime writers as well. Have you written for anime?
Okay. I don't know how many Power Rangers seasons are on YouTube. I think they're starting to put them all up, right? I don't know how many. That is a question for Hasbro. Unfortunately, I don't know anymore. But I think they just started putting SPD, I think. That's what I heard on the Twitters. No, I haven't written anime, but I love anime. I think it's a lot of fun. I actually really wanted to develop a Power Rangers anime when I was with the brand, but it never happened. But that would have been like, I really wanted to do a really stylized anime-inspired Power Rangers series.
Power Rangers and Attack on Titan combined.
Yeah. Yeah, like I mean, Castlevania did it really well. They did a Transformers anime. Like there was a Marvel one that was done that was interesting. So yeah.
Oh, that would have been cool.
If you decide to do that, Melissa, since you are, writing for Boom, writing for Power Rangers, you should perhaps have female leads.
Oh, you think?
A small female lead, yes. Just Tanya, Kat, Jen, Keisha.
Yeah.
Don't disagree at all. You guys know I have my favorites.
Oh, that's awesome. That would have been. You want to read manga? You could do manga too.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
That would be fun.
Okay. This one, there's 2 questions. This is actually 3 questions from Scott. How did it feel working with the OG Rangers for the Battle of the Grid?
It was really fun. I hadn't ever worked with Austin before. So that was a new experience, and it was really funny because he hadn't done voice work for Power Rangers in such a long time. He was having a little bit of trouble finding his voice. And I remember being like, "Come on, guys!" And he's like, "Yes, that's it." I think he thought I was a crazy woman. Like, I don't think he even knew I worked for the brand. I think he just thought I was just some rando that showed up in the room, because he was just like, "I really like I like it. You're a super fan." And so, yeah, it was really cute.
That's fun.
Yeah. And then he didn't remember me the next time I saw him.
Oh dear.
Until 10 minutes later, and he's like, "I remember now." I'm like, "Okay, cool." He was great, did a great job, obviously. I had met David already a couple times, but he flew in to do Zordon, which we were really appreciative of. And he was fantastic, and he's already an accomplished voice actor, so we actually did other characters for us too, and he's just the nicest guy. Like, I love David. He's a sweetheart. So it's always great. And then whenever he breaks out that Zordon voice, you always get chills. And Jason David Frank I worked with quite a bit, so it wasn't the first time I had worked with him. But that one, actually, Kyle flew to Texas to record Jason because he was so busy that he couldn't do it. He couldn't come to LA. So Kyle went and recorded Jason in Texas. But thankfully, Jason made time for us there. So we were lucky. We didn't have that many slots open because our budget was so tiny. So we kind of had to prioritize on who was actually speaking. And I know we couldn't get Amy Jo because it was a non-union show. Or non-union gig. So we ended up having Megan Camarena, who was Hyperforce Pink, do Kimberly and Ranger Slayer.
She sounds
like great. Yeah, she did a great job. So we were lucky. It came out really, really well for something that we literally we weren't originally going to have a voiced part of it. It was just going to be all subtitles. And I remember I was like, we need to have voices. And thankfully they agreed with me and found the money. And we pulled together really quick. I think it really helped elevate that story mode really well.
Yeah, I think that makes it more fun for the fans to hear the hero voice,
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't played it, but my fans send it to me all the time talking about how fantastic it is. So
Really
his second question is, will there be any more downloadable content for the game?
You'll have to ask anyway. I hope so. It's been a few years. I mean, the game came out in like 2 or 3 years ago, and usually these games have a shelf life in terms of how long they're supported. But I think people are still playing Battle for the Grid, and I think they just recently released even a new season. So I definitely think that there's something they're still looking at. I hope they will. I have no inside knowledge of that, but considering how good they have been about supporting that and Legacy Wars, I imagine there should be more characters coming out.
Okay, awesome. And then his final question is, what is your favorite item from the Lightning Collection that's been released so far?
My favorite, Ranger Slayer. I really love Ranger Slayer.
Yeah.
She's really cool. She's one of my favorite characters. She's so much fun. I think Kyle and Ryan did such a good job with that character and just her origin. And I love Tommy. I do. Everybody loves Tommy, but I love when other characters are also given a platform.
Yeah.
And I freaking love that character. So
yeah. So she's like the female version of Draken.
So what she is, and this is what's really interesting. So in the alt world that Draken comes from, she was one of the resistance fighters that was trying to stop him. And she ended up being captured by him. After she found her boyfriend was murdered by him, she went and tried to confront him. He ended up capturing her. And because he had been mentored by Rita, he was semi-witch himself, bewitched her and forced her to be his essentially right hand.
Wow.
So he turned her into Ranger Slayer. And then sent her back in time, but to kill Tommy, but he sent her back too far. And so when she was stuck in that timeline, the instead of a sword of darkness, she had a bow of darkness that was broken, and the spell was broken. So all these things that she had done as Draken's minion, she's now been forced to live with.
Oh,
and
that's so sad. So she's like a shell of herself.
Yeah, so she's basically just trying to atone for everything that she has done, even though she didn't necessarily do it of her own will and her own power. It's really sad, what happened to her. But that's why I love her, because she's so strong.
Does she she teams up with other Rangers to help them?
Yeah, so she teams up with the other Rangers. She's very important in Beyond the Grid, which is also the arc that had Tanya in it.
Yes.
And that's why I love her about her, because her spirit is never really broken, even if her mind was. And then she goes back and she actually takes over the coinless dimension and becomes the new Drakon, but in a benevolent Drakon, right? The one that it unites people back together. It's a very cool story, and I really do love Ranger Slayer. And her design is very cool.
Yeah, the costume's amazing. We saw people bring all these incredible collectibles to us, but they have the beautiful Ranger Slayer. Remember we saw that one, Kia? The guy brought it. It was beautiful, a model, expensive model of her. Yeah, really amazing.
That's what I was trying to bring up. There was I don't know who made it. I don't know if it was Super 7 or the other company, but there's this huge figure of her. She's probably this big.
Yeah.
Have you seen all of her toys, Melissa, outside of the Lightning Collection?
I haven't seen all of them. No, so I have a toy problem. And I don't know if you can see. No, you purposely can't see it. I am bringing a bunch of these toys to Power Morphicon to sell them because I just have too much. I have an entire storage unit of just toys.
Oh, Melissa.
Because they gave me everything. They were so nice to me. And I had everything, and I never said no.
You need a room museum.
So I just stopped. I had to stop as soon as I left Power Rangers. I just had to stop because I'm like, there's no room anymore. I'm done. There's it's gonna be like Power Rangers, but I'm gonna be on Hoarders. I need to stop. So, I don't look at the Power Ranger toys because I don't want to buy them.
Oh, I see. Yes, it's very tempting. I feel the same way with these new Lightning figures. They're so beautiful, and some of the stuff they show me, and like, what's that company? Zero.
Figure arts. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, they're so pretty. The whole that I
They're not.
can't.
They may be the one to be the Ranger Slayer, but you should get those autographed, Melissa.
Yeah.
You know 50,000 Rangers. Why don't you get them autographed?
Do that because I know you guys. I don't want to, like, you know.
Oh, please. Bring them to us. I'll sign whatever you want to sign.
Yes, bring them to Power Morphicon. Sell the other ones that you don't want, but bring them to Power Morphicon, get them autographed, and keep them inside of your house so that you'll have, you know, $50,000 worth of merchandise inside of your house. Get it insured too. But yes.
Okay, you said I could. Okay, I'm gonna remind you.
No, I have no problem. No problem.
I'm gonna go to all these randos and be like, here, sign this. Nakia said it was okay.
Nakia and Kat said.
Yeah, Kat said it was okay. And they're like, who are you?
That's too funny.
Okay, we have a ton more of super chat questions that have come in.
Let's slam through them.
This is from Moira, and you know Moira.
Hi,
Melissa.
yes, Maura. Hi, baby. She wants me. I bet it has to do with Gizmo.
Yes, yes, it is. Super chat, raise them up high. Hello, ladies. Melissa, for old time's sake, give Gizmo treats. I
don't have treats right now, but I'll give her a hug.
Oh, Gizmo. Ah, she's so cute.
She's like, I was sleeping, Mom.
Look at her messy hair. Oh my gosh.
Here. That's so cute.
Hello, brown.
Say hi.
Oh
say hi to everybody. Hello.
Look at the tongue.
Like, let me go back to sleep, please.
Her missing teeth. I love the tongue hanging out. That's classic.
Yeah, she's an old lady.
Oh.
She does remind me of like a little gremlin.
She does. Yeah.
You know, but when I got her, she was technically a rescue. She was given to me by somebody that couldn't take care of her anymore, and she was in bad shape. She had been all shaved out. She had an open sore right here, and her ears, you know, seen they're big. Like she looked like a gremlin. That's why I called her. I couldn't name her Gremlin. I tried, and my mom was like, "That's too mean." So she became Gizmo.
Erin Cahill's dog is a gremlin.
Oh,
yeah,
I love gremlin dogs.
I said I gave a horrible description, and I had to apologize because I'm like, that is like your furry child, and I'm calling it a gremlin crossed with a rat, crossed with a possum,
No, you have to. The uglier, the better. Honestly, like you have to love that.
Yeah, she's adorable. Anyway,
do you have one more?
No, I'm done. I'm done with my questions.
Okay, so Michael Pan, super chat, raise him up high. He says, "What was the transition like?"
Do you mean I'm assuming Keeman's? Sorry, go ahead.
I said I'm not sure which transition. Maybe from Saban to Hasbro. I'm assuming,
or maybe from writer to executive, or executive to writer.
Why don't you just talk about either one, whichever transition?
From Hasbro to Hasbro, it was definitely different, very different. They're a much bigger company and they are much more structured. Saban Brands was much smaller. There was a lot more freedom and it was a lot crazier because of that, because there were less people to do more things. But the upside was you got to do more things. Hasbro was much more structured in that everybody has their place, and then we show up and they're like, we don't know what to do with you. So that was a journey. Thankfully though, they really loved what we did at Saban, so they were excited to figure out how to make that work for us, at least until E1 came in. In terms of the writer thing, that was a long time in the making. Like I said, I wanted to be a writer for a really long time. But I really enjoyed producing. I was happy doing what I was doing, but I had been doing it for 10 years. And I think I was spoiled at Saban because I wasn't just working on television. I was able to work on all this other stuff. I got to work on a feature film. I got to work on video games and graphic novels and publishing and live tours. Like there were things I got to do everything. So leaving Hasbro and the idea of going back to a network or a studio and just working on television again, as much as I love television, it kind of broke me a little bit. And so thankfully by that time, and again, there's nothing that's ever wasted. I had spent 10 years giving notes to writers and learning how to be a better writer through their work. I had developed my skills, I think, considerably than when I first started. And what I did was when I left Hasbro, I reached out to some of the people that some of the colleagues I had made relationships with during my 10 years at Hasbro. One was the co-EP of the Walking Dead series. It was a spin-off. One of the producers at Devolver, Kyle Higgins, people that I respected, people whose work I respected. And I asked them a very honest question. I said, knowing what you know about me, do you think I have what it takes to be a writer in this industry? And I want you to be honest, because this is something I'm seriously considering. And thankfully, every single one of them was. And they all said, it will be very hard, but if anybody can do it, you can. And thankfully, we are at a place now where they're looking for queer minority writers. And I think you're in a really good place. And I said, okay. And then I worked my butt off for 2 years. And thankfully, I'm finally at the place now where that is legitimately what's happening. I have 3 different comic book projects. I have a podcast series. I have, which I haven't announced yet, so pretend I didn't say that. I have, I'm working full-time as a staff writer on another project. I'm developing a lot of other things with other people. So, but it took time. And even in these 2 years that I've been since I've left Power Rangers, I feel like my craft has gotten better.
It's almost like it forced you out of to think out of the box. I feel, if anything came out of 2020 as well, I feel like that's something amazing that came out of 2022 is people had to think bigger than what they were getting out of their comfort zone a little bit, and that's what you had to do. And look at where you are. Like, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. I'm lucky. I think if somebody looked at me and would say, well, this happened very fast for her, but it didn't. I've been trying to be a writer since I was out of college.
Right.
So, but I just took a different way. And I think that's one of the other things you can really put into account. Like there's never one way to get in somewhere. Everything I did at Power Rangers, at FX, at HBO taught me what to do and what not to do if I'm trying to do this for a living.
Yeah.
And working at Power Rangers specifically taught me that there's more than one medium. Like it doesn't just count if you're a writer in television.
Yeah.
You can look at other mediums and really enjoy what they have to offer and do that too.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Awesome. Super proud of you.
Melissa, you go.
Little thank you. That means a lot coming from you.
No, seriously, you've used your tools so beautifully. It's really exciting to see where you've come. I mean, you've always been such an impressive person, but it's really exciting to see you stepping into your creativity like this. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
It's a blessing to be in your dream. That is an absolute blessing. Okay, we have just a couple more. And another one just came in again. Chanzo Tambuzi, Super Chat, up high. Were you with Saban during the Legacy toy line? And what were the plans for the toy line before Hasbro bought the franchise? I love that Legacy line. Thank you.
Yes, I was there. It was not specifically my department, but I was involved in the meetings in terms of like looking at who to bring on and how, again, I was story. So the toys aside of me looking at them and be like, oh, that looks cool, or looking at our slate of content and then looking at the toys and being like, well, this is coming up, so maybe you guys should be looking at this person. Like, here's who we're featuring in the Boom Studios books. And it would go the other way too. They'd be like, we're including so and so in the upcoming toy line or in the upcoming this. Can we find a way to put them in the series or in the comic books. That was where my expertise came in, or how I would help. But it was fantastic. I think it was a lot of fun to finally be able to have feedback in terms of what I wanted to see. Titanus was really fun. I was really excited to have Titanus because I freaking love him. The one that I wish we had got that we never did was Serpentera. Serpentera is my baby, but I don't know how that would work. And I was still pushing it at Hasbro when they did Lightning. But I was like, maybe it's like a HasLab thing. I don't know, but I want Serpentera to come back. I have the old one, the one from like 95, but
yeah, Serpentera was cool. Yeah, they'll go. I mean, everything's Power Rangers, MMPR. Anything to do with MMPR will come back eventually.
Yeah, it's true. You know, in a sense, I understand that MMPR is what started the franchise, and it's what launched everything else. If that wasn't popular, then everything else would not have happened. So, well, kudos to MMPR. Yeah. All right, JL has 2 more questions again. Super chat, raise them up high. Would you do a Marvel or DC crossover Power Rangers? And do you know Jensen Ackles?
I don't know Jensen Ackles. He's a very handsome man, but I don't know him. We did DC crossover. We did Justice League versus Power Rangers as a comic book, and that was really fun. So I guess if I had to pick now, I am a DC girl at heart. I love DC.
I was Wonder Woman. Can't nobody tell me anything else. I was Wonder Woman, Melissa. Growing up, I was Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Whipping her brothers with belts.
I was She-Ra, but I feel you because I love Wonder Woman.
I was She-Ra. I loved She-Ra. Princess of Power.
Yes. Oh my God, you would have been a perfect one. Both of you. You would have been a perfect Wonder Woman. You would have been a perfect She-Ra. It was great. Yeah, so I mean, I would love to do a Marvel crossover. I don't know if that would ever happen because Marvel is very precious with their brand. It's done very well for them. Why would they need? They don't need Power Rangers right now. But we did a DC and a Power Rangers one, and it was really fun. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not. There was a really cool potential to do something cool that we just couldn't get approval for. But so eventually I'd love to be able to do something like that but yeah, all the crossovers that we did were really fun. I feel like the comic books was where we could do them. They just did a Godzilla versus Power Rangers crossover. The one that I never got to do that I really would have loved to do would be Buffy and Power Rangers.
Oh yeah.
That would have been really fun.
Who owned He-Man and She-Ra? Who were they?
Mattel.
Okay.
Mattel owns He-Man and She-Ra.
Barbie. We can have Nikki and Power Rangers.
Yes.
Kia is the Barbie, so I think we can make that work.
I play Nikki. I
love it. Yeah, I mean, Hasbro. I don't know if Hasbro would ever work with Mattel, but we could always try.
Yeah, there's a little rivalry there. Yeah.
All right, 2 more questions, and then we're going to ask 2 of our own personal questions. All right, this is from Alexco 8. He's using Roman numerals. Hey, Super Chat, raise them up high. I almost forgot about that. What advice would you give to someone trying to pursue a career in development?
It's hard. It's hard because there's no one way to do it. So it's hard to say. I mean, before there was only one way, you had to come to LA, get in a mailroom or become an assistant and work your way up. I don't think that's the case anymore. It really depends on what kind of development you want to do. I think there is a lot to be said for content creation now, doing it yourself. I think that's one way to get in the door is if you do it yourself and you do it professionally enough and you get good enough that people notice you and you have content that you can send to people. That's one way to do it. Another way is just to do it the old-fashioned way. Try to get a job as an assistant in a development studio or a television studio or a production company or somebody that does development already, and learn from them. Because at the end of the day, what you are doing is learning. The challenge that's happening now in the industry is that there's a lot of people that are being hired as showrunners. And there's actually been a couple articles about it, which is really interesting, with no experience on how to be a showrunner. and it can be a challenging work environment because for them when they do that, because they are brilliant technically, but then there's a lot of stuff that is not creatively inclined. You know, when you're a showrunner, you're not writing all the time. You're having 1,000 meetings and like producing, you know, doing line items and working with the line producers and working with budgets. And so a lot of education is what is really helpful to you. What is it? Learn what it's like. Like, do your research. What is it like in a writer's room? Is that even something you want to do? What is it like to work for the television industry? What is it like to work in the comic book industry? Because they work very differently, right? What is the process that goes into each one of them? What is the difference between a feature and a television, and what works for you? Which one would you want? I think once you start to educate yourself on every single one of those, what it takes to develop every single one of those things, you'll find out pretty quickly which is the one that makes you feel more passionate. And then you'll be able to learn how to get in that industry. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, doing your research. It's just like actors going to acting class, going and I loved what you said earlier about you know, finding what kind of styles of writing you like and kind of honing in and finding those skills so that you can tailor your craft around that. I really liked that, what you said about that, because I don't think people do enough research before they just want to do it and they don't know like what it takes. Because thing with acting, it's like you have to be able to pull and draw from all kinds of things when you're on set, and they want you to cry on cue. Like, how do I do that? Like, if you don't have the tools, it's very challenging.
It's work like everything else, right? Like you ladies work at your craft.
Right.
And it's the same thing with being a writer. You know, I think a lot of people, art is art, right? No matter what, you have the sensibilities, but art also needs to be trained. And if you submit a script that is, you know, 20 pages too long and has terrible format, it doesn't matter how good it is. Nobody's going to want to hear it. Nobody's going to want to read it because they know that you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
So do your research, consult, talk to people, take a class. Like there's 1,000, like YouTube is a masterclass of filmmaking and development. Like you don't even have to pay anymore. You just have to go on YouTube and listen to these amazing people. Don't even just like look at like movie set terminology so you know what people are talking about when they talk about what the best boy does and what the grip does. Like it's the more you learn, the better in a position you're going to be to know what you're talking about. So when people want to take a chance on you because they don't feel like it's a risk. This person knows what they're doing. It's not going to be me babysitting them.
That is great advice.
I want to piggyback on that because I have to tell a very embarrassing thing that happened when you talk about doing research. So this is when hashtags first came about. I had an audition, and it was direct to a director callback. And one of my lines was a hashtag and then hashtag Honda or something like that. I did not know what a hashtag was. I thought it was a number sign. So I really, during my audition, I'm like, and nobody does Honda like nobody does Honda like number sign Honda. The producers were looking at me like, what the heck? I did not know. I was not on Twitter. I didn't know what I thought it was either a pound or a number sign. So I was like, number sign Honda. Needless to say, I didn't get the job.
Oh no.
That was a no.
I mean, honestly, you made their day though. That sounds like hilarious. I would have never forgotten you after that.
Oh my God.
But it's so the moral of the story, guys, is make sure you do your research. Make sure you know. I should have just asked the question. I should have been like, why is there a number sign here? What does that mean? And I literally found out right after I did the audition. They were like, Makia, that's a hashtag. I was like, what's that? Oh, I was so embarrassed. I was so
oh my God.
The last super chat was just to say hello. Super chat, raise them up high. Brainy Chan just says hello. And now we're on our last. We're on our last.
It's a new sound she's discovered. She's been waiting an hour to do that, by the way.
I love it.
Wait.
Pat, I'll let you ask your question first.
So this is just a little question. We always ask fun questions at the end. If you could go back in time and give your childhood self some advice, what would you say?
What would I say? It's okay to be different. It's okay to be weird. I think people are a lot more lonely than they pretend to be. And I think a lot of times people forget that every single person feels as much as you do, and feels as bad as you do, and feels as good as you do. You can be very alone in this world, especially when you feel like you don't understand people the way other people do. And I've definitely been in that place where I just didn't feel like I fit in. And there was a lot of otherness to me when I was young, because I was a gay kid that I didn't know I was gay. I was a Latina, but I was Latina that I forgot how to speak Spanish, so I had to relearn it. So, and I lived in a very, it wasn't a low-income area, but it was a middle-class area that had a lot of Latinos in it, and a lot of people that, like, so the Latinos were mad at me because I didn't speak Spanish, and they thought I was white, but I wasn't white. And the white people definitely didn't think I was white, So there was a lot of otherness. And I was just a weird kid. I lived in my stories and I lived in my books, and I was very insecure. I had two beautiful sisters that seemed to know exactly what they were doing at all times, and I had no idea what I was doing at any given time. I would just rather read my books and watch my TV shows. And it took a long time for me to just be okay with the idea that I was different, that I wasn't always going to know exactly the right thing to say, that I wasn't always going to learn. I think that's okay. It's okay to be uncomfortable and to push yourself. I think settling and just seeing like, well, that's just how I am. If you don't like something about yourself, you don't have to do that either. But I think you should celebrate your uniqueness and work on being the best you that you could be. And I think that's what I would tell myself. I would say like, hey, listen, you're never going to be a size 4. That's okay. Just be healthy and be the best version of you that you could be. You're never going to be the person that knows what to say at all times, at any time. That's okay. Just make sure you're there with a friend and think of something, have a funny story that can break the ice. Find ways to make you the best you can use, and you'll feel a lot less lonely in your life.
And we're all, if you really start digging into people, we're all weird. Every single human being is a little weird. We're all a little off, especially after 2020. I'm very off.
Yes.
And it's beautiful to be different. Being different is a great thing.
Absolutely. Well, even now, I mean, I wrote The Dead Lucky, which is about a Latina superhero, or half Chinese, half Latina superhero in LA or in San Francisco. I didn't think anything of it. I was just trying to write something that was based on my experience. But when I was at CDCC, which is a Chicago convention, the amount of people that came up to me, the amount of Latinos that came up to me that said how much it meant to them to have somebody that looks like them in a superhero story. Was shocking to me, and I feel dumb that it was. Because of course, and so there are people, you're less alone than you think you are, and I think that's one of the great things about the internet, is that it's a lot easier to find people like you now.
Well, that Nakia talks about that all the time, that we get, I mean, every single convention, every single day on our social media, it's kids saying, oh my gosh, when I saw you on TV, I thought, oh my gosh, if she can do it, I can do it. Or, oh, your character didn't. It happens all the time with Power Rangers, because it was a very diverse cast and very groundbreaking for its time in the superhero world. And so it's very important that people see people that represent them. So I love that. I love that. Yes.
Well,
and look at you now.
I've totally been your friend growing up. You would have been one of my people. No, seriously, you would have definitely been one of my people. And we just had another super chat that came through. Scott Picklicky, who asked a couple of the questions. He said, thank you, Melissa, for answering my questions. So my question before we go is, if you could be a real life superhero, what would your power be and why? Let me say this real quick about it, because Erin's power.
You won't be surprised what Erin's power was.
What is it? I want to hear. I want to hear yours too.
Her power was to cry out water. Wasn't it to cry out water so she could water crops?
That's so Erin.
So she could feed the world. It was so cute.
I love it. Oh my God.
She's so adorable.
If I had to pick one, it's hard. I think I would be to be able to talk to animals.
Oh, that's a cute one.
Yeah, and to actually like understand them and like be able to talk back, because there's so many times I'm just like trying to talk to my dog and be like, no, understand why you have to stay here. Stop looking at me like that. You cannot go. They don't let little doggies. Like, you have to stay. You'll be happier here. I promise. Even I lost my cat. We actually lost 2 pets this past year. Sandra's 16-year-old dog, my partner, her 16-year-old dog, and my 16-year-old cat. We lost them both within like 2 months. And it, like, just to be able to tell them how much they meant to you, and how much you're gonna miss them every single day. Like, I'd love, and for them to understand. Like, we're not leaving you in this hospital because we hate you. It's because you can't breathe and we want you to live, or we need to let you go now. Like, that's what I would love.
They know. They're so intuitive for animals. They're amazing like that. Yeah. What was yours, Kia? Your superpower?
I think mine was to fly. I'm always to fly. I tell everybody, when I'm in heaven, I'm gonna be flying, and I'm gonna be riding my lion. I'm gonna be asking house, riding my lion, asking if they want to hang out with me and my lion, Mufasa.
I love it. I always think about how cold it is up there, though, and I'm like, okay, so if I fly, I have to like get like weatherproof skin.
Oh, Nicola, she is the coldest person I know. She'll be dressed in Ugg boots with her.
I'll be good in heaven. I'll be nice and warm and just flying.
Oh yeah, it's a different story when you're in heaven. They take care of all that for you.
Yes. Melissa, you are extraordinary. And please hold on when we do our ending. Do you have a couple minutes afterward just to chat? Okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining our show. Where can everybody find you?
You can find me at Misty_Flores on Twitter and Instagram, and I will also be at Power Morphicon. So
yes, we can hug you in person. Yes.
Thank you. We'll be right back. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. We went a little bit over, but we needed to go over because we need to hear all this beautiful, beautiful words that she spoke.
Yes, it was such a great hour. She's got so much to share. Like, I know she's highly intelligent and creative and all the things we know about her, but it was really, I learned, again, I feel like every time we have a guest on this show, I learn new things about them, even though we've known them for years. So thank you, Melissa, and thank you everybody for tuning in and for your wonderful questions. And we'll see you next time on Power
Rangers.
Playback. Bye.
Bye.